July the 2nd, 2024. Guys, you're looking at the 5 p.m. advisory from Sky Tower down in Florida, part of the Fox Hurricane Network. Very good channel. Anyway, what we're dealing with is right now 155 mile per hour winds. Now that's slightly rounded down, but because it's so close to a Cat 6, the technical data on this is 135 kilometers. And that puts us at a 155.38, say 154, so a sixth of a mile per hour less than a Cat 5, less than 1 mile per hour. But just a little over that, and they round it down or up if necessary. And you're moving west at 22 miles per hour. It's moving a little faster. 943 on the millibars in pressure. That's low, guys. But some of the records, I think the lowest ever on the planet when they could record it was what was called Typhoon Tip, TIP. 1979, it was 870 millibars. But the lowest in the Atlantic was Wilma, and back in 2005, and that was 882 millibars. So this is well above it, not that much, but this is not a record in millibars. It's like second, though, probably in sustained winds in a very long time. So again, right, we're sitting here at less than 1 mile per hour as a Cat 5. And the reason I'm emphasizing that, Jamaica, you guys, there's great people there. The Caribbean is full of a bunch of really nice people that have such a survival attitude, guys, that if you looked at the video that I linked this morning on the impact on some of the earlier islands, especially in the Windward Islands, everything was devastated. But people were smiling and saying, we're going to pull through this. You know, they've been through it before, but none of them had ever experienced anything like this. Again, that video was in the video before this one. It's a link in the comments, and it shows the devastation. A lot of people there lost their boats, which it's just an island. They lost, and one guy had a boat missing, they were gone. He had a little restaurant that was very popular. He had a home there. He had a food truck, like a catering food truck. All of that was gone. He was interviewed in that video that I linked. I may go ahead and put it back in this one because you guys in Jamaica, you got to look at that video if you have any thoughts of trying to make it through something that's strong. Now, tonight, after midnight, it's going to come ashore. They're saying at 125 mile per hour winds. We will see if it does that. But notice, where they're saying 125, guys, it's already ashore and starting to slow down. But let me say this, Jamaica. And let me say another thing. Jamaica really has some nice folks there. And one of my favorite musicians ever for you folks there, just so you know how this guy from Mississippi feels. Bob Marley was one of my favorite musicians. And as a matter of fact, one of my earlier bands, we played reggae music. Play y'all some reggae. You remember that? And it's such a great place. The attitude is wonderful there. But the Caribbean is a survivalist civilization, you would say, in the Caribbean nations. And I want to shout out to them, but do not play with this storm. Jamaica, this 125, it's coming ashore. I'm going to read some data. Notice this is a 5 p.m. report. Some of the information is coming in at 6 p.m. updates, not this one. And the technical data that I have came out at 4 p.m. We'll look through that briefly. I don't want to make this a long, drawn-out situation. But Thursday at 2 a.m., the next day, because the way they're looking at this, the island of Jamaica is going to slow down this Cat 3. Then you're going to get into the Grand Caymans at 110 mile per hour. And then 100 miles per hour coming out from under Cuba. And then coming ashore in the Yucatan at 85 miles per hour as a Cat 1. Remember, 74, I think it is, starts your Category 1 hurricane. Here's the important part, and we know the numbers have been ultra conservative. So it weakens from 85 miles per hour. As it crosses the Yucatan, it comes the other side, it's down to 65. But notice that warm water is showing a not a rapid increase, but going to 70 miles per hour here, and the gusts are going to be over a Cat 1, then coming ashore as a Cat, not a Cat 1, but 70 mile per hour sustained winds here in the Mexico area south of the Rio Grande River on the border with the U.S. and Mexico. And this is 5 p.m. Some information 6, some is at 4 p.m. Let's look at what we have to work with. Now, the spaghetti models have a very new update, guys, 2 minutes old. Now, we're going through this live together, okay? I did write down the numbers that we were looking at on the forecast for tomorrow and the next few days. We'll look through those. Here's what we're dealing with now. The Canadian model and our Navy model in the purple. Canadian model is right here in the pale green. See, it says CMC, and then the purple line is Navy. Everything's moving south. What this does, if the Navy's right, is still keeping the worst part of the storm going up into Galveston and Houston area. And I don't know how fast you guys are recovering from the tropical storm that came ashore in Mexico. Was it Alberto? And 350 miles south, and it flooded that island there in the Galveston. Was it Sand Island? I always get it mixed up. Anyway, the picture showed that you were a couple feet deep, and most of you had your homes on pylons. You didn't have the wind, and it was a good thing. But just to show you the energy that we're dealing with as we're seeing the changes in our Earth's environment, it's important for that to be put into the computers. And I don't think it has, and that's why I think the numbers are being very conservative. Now, there's a good chance that they will input the data from this year into their new forecast for next year as it goes into a learning curve. And it does help, like we do on this channel, to look at all the things that affect our planet, whether it's the sun or anything else, how the tilt of our planet, the cycles we're in, and the heating process that we're going through now. But again, I think they will next year. Some people will start to input the data from this year, and that will put a curve in the graph that will be, I would love to see it. But anyway, I think that's what is happening here. Again, the two models we want to watch, the CMC in the purple, and the, in the green, and the Navy model in the purple right here. So you've got a gap covering a wide area, but the central part of it is along the Rio Grande River. Everything is shifting like we said it would from day one. Right now it is shifting to the west. We have seen this change as these storms get in here, and suddenly the lines start moving back into Louisiana. This is not a scare tactic video. I'm just thinking of things in my mind that we have seen and you have seen. But this thing can change and end up back in the panhandle depending on how the low pressure and high pressure are acting above this. But we'll go with what we have now. Again, from central Texas down to north Mexico or northeastern Mexico along the Gulf, this is where they're expecting it. Notice that the green line and the purple line are crossing all the way from basically where we are at now, or they are at, across Jamaica, and that would put the storm, the worst part of it, across the central island, then coming across the Yucatan together, then separating there, because you get out so many days and the forecast becomes a little more uncertain, and it will depend on what kind of front we're dealing with, high or low pressure. Let's start out with the Canadian model, guys. Here's our storm. Takes a very hard swipe at Jamaica there, across the Yucatan and into Mexico, again south of the Rio Grande, the border with Texas and Mexico. A couple things, let's let it play through, I want to point out. Again, good hard lick on Jamaica into the Yucatan, but re-strengthening right there. See how it gets back into the deeper blues because it's over warmer waters. That would be the best scenario for everyone, except I don't want anybody to get flooded out or in any trouble in Mexico. You need the rain. But if it goes quickly across the northern section of the Bay of Campeche into the Mexico, then it will have less time to strengthen. This is the low end of the two models we watch the most, coming in right there, but that sudden strengthening. Now let's take a look at NavGem, or the Navy model. Let it just a little right there. And again, it's on the high end of our models, and when they all come together, we'll know more about it. It shows rapid intensification, but look at the path. It's slightly different. Again, a very hard impact on Jamaica, but it does not go as far west or southwest into the Yucatan. That means the storm does not stay over land quite as long. Impact points. Let's go through it one more time. Again, re-strengthening at its strongest part of the whole journey. Now, we're going to have to wait and see how that plays out, but notice the low pressure really drops here, coming in. And guys, here, looking at it from the angle it comes in, even though it's in central Texas, I've got to point out Galveston Bay, you're still in that northeast quadrant. But guys, the size of the storm, and think about our Alberto again, 350 miles away from Houston, you had flooding there, a lot of flooding. But this is going to be much wider. If it comes in here, it's going to be all of Louisiana. You're going to have massive winds all the way through the Florida Panhandle. But again, we'll know more about that as it gets closer. You'll start seeing these models come together, but we're going to keep an eye on it, Lord willing, guys, and you will be updated in as much detail as I can give you. Now, guys, you're looking at yesterday, afternoon late, last night, and today so far. Right here are the Windward Islands. You can see South America. And notice one thing about it. This is the same satellite that we've been watching. It was coming into our lower frame. So we are definitely seeing a more northerly turn from just by looking at the camera angle change. Look at that. We were seeing it coming down here and now here. That's why I think the Navy is putting it back up into central Texas. That's just me. Again, one of the things they're talking about slowing it down, besides the fact that it's going to go over Jamaica, is some wind coming off of these fronts down below it. And actually, guys, I'm looking at some of the other models. Wherever the storm comes in, it may possibly pull a large amount of moisture out of the Caribbean right behind it. So it may not be just the rain that you're dealing with this beautifully symmetric storm that is one of the most dangerous things on the planet. It's like an atomic bomb without the radiation going over your area. Again, the devastation in this area is unbelievable. That video is the one I was talking about being linked. Now, Jamaica, I was looking at some of your travel advisors and all, and it looks like they're telling people to hunker down and maybe the flights are either booked out or whatever is happening. So you may just check that out. You know, I've been warning about this for a few days and hoping as many people that would get out. I'm not sure if you can now or not. What you don't want to be is in any low-lying area. And you want to be on the opposite side of the mountain, if you can, from where the wind is coming. You've got a mountain ridge going through the island. If you can move to the downwind side to where you have some cover from this type of wind, Jamaica, listen to what I'm telling you. Look at this. Now, not only are you going to have very damaging winds, but flooding. So even if you're in a more protected elevation, do not be like down in the valley where the runoffs are, where you're going to have landslides, things like that. If you're trapped, make as many plans as you can. Look at the islands and the video coming across the Windward Islands. There's devastation there. They have no electricity, no water. I guess they can fish for food, but that's kind of the island that came across the worst was an agricultural-based island. And you can see orchards wiped out, things like that. Boats are gone for the fishermen. They will recover, but they have to pay attention to the rest of the season. So prayers go out to the Windward Islands. Jamaica, prayers going out to you right now for what's coming at your area. Cayman Islands, same way. Now let's go 2 days in infrared where the night does not affect what you're seeing, guys. Look at this. It came across the Windward Islands. Check this out. Jamaica, you're not far out of this frame, but you can definitely tell a northward trend in the development and the power around that eye wall. That's scary, guys, because not many people have ever been in a hurricane this strong. And Jamaica, you're going to get hit hard, and we're hoping that the reports, some of the technical data coming in on the printouts, I hope they're wrong, because it shows that it's staying fairly strong, maybe a little stronger than they're predicting. Again, I said they're being conservative, but that's very powerful right there. What you're seeing is starting at the end of this. Remember, they're a few hours ahead of us on the timings. The sun set there, starting to cool off. You see that? That's called cycling. Going from that big eye right there, that's going to cycle out. Then when it recycles, you'll see it strengthen, especially in the morning. And the morning, again, is going to get there earlier than it does here. That morning sun is going to heat this up. We will have to wait and see, but there's not a lot that's stopping the storm. Remember in last night's video, and maybe in this one, I mentioned that what they're predicting is the winds coming out of South America and the Southern Caribbean and affecting the storm. I also said that once they get to a certain size, they control the weather. Remember that? Now look at the pattern along South America. It's not pushing up like it is at the beginning 2 days ago. Watch it now. This storm is throwing everything the way it wants it to. And the very fact that it is doing that now, again, watch it as we get into overnight and into today, the fact that it's controlling the environment around it should concern all the meteorologists and everyone in their programming as far as the future updates. And I'm going to let it play through one more time, getting one for the record books. Look at this. You see that feed right there? And some of the moisture models going into this thing as it's starting to come ashore shows a very large plume of moisture behind this that's going to follow it actually into the northeast quadrant of wherever it lands. Now let's look at some of the printouts first. Notice this update was at 2100 hours UTC, or in some places they call it Zulu time, but it's universal time. It's 5 hours ahead of the East Coast, so this would be 1600 hours on the East Coast. If you look at military time scale, it goes from 1 to 24. 1600 hours is 4 p.m. on the East Coast. That's why this update is here. It's very accurate, but they may be waiting again on another flyover from the hurricane watchers. But I'm not sure, because it's already night there. They may wait and do it in the morning. It just depends on how severe they feel this thing is. It would be more dangerous at night, but again, it is depending, I think, on how they think it's going to work out. But anyway, at 4 o'clock this afternoon on this printout, they were talking about the storm is 135 knots, gusting to 165 knots. Now, 135, guys, you're talking about 155.3 miles per hour, 3.8 as a matter of fact. So, again, this is what I was saying. You're less than 1 mile below a Cat 5 with gusts to 165. And, guys, that's 190 miles an hour. Now, if you come down here, that's the afternoon report. We may get one more tonight. I'm not sure. But right now they're giving us tomorrow morning's update on the 3rd, Wednesday. Jamaica, are you listening? Maximum winds 125 knots. That is 144 miles per hour, and 150 knot gust. So, guys, that's 173 mile per hour winds in the gust. That's well above a Cat 5 still in those winds that do the most damage. Now, if we go to Thursday morning on the 4th of July, we got coming up here. Let's scroll down right there. 95 knot winds, gust to 115. That's 110 miles per hour, maximum wind. The gust are 132 miles per hour. So you're at a Cat 2 as far as sustained winds at that point. The afternoon of the 4th of July, we're looking at 85 knot winds with gusts of 105. 85 knots, guys, puts us at 98 mile per hour winds above a Cat 1. Gust at 105 knots, which is 121 miles per hour. They're saying it will be a Cat 1, but the gust will put you up into the Cat 2 gust very easily. Now, we're getting close to becoming ashore in the Yucatan. They've got one more report before then, and this is on the 5th AM report. 75 knot winds, gust to 95 miles per hour. That's putting you at 86 mile per hour sustained winds, below a Cat 1. 90 knot winds, that's 104 miles per hour at that point. Then Friday, it comes ashore on the PM report. 55 knots or 63 miles per hour. That's the sustained winds. The peaks are 75 miles per hour, still above a Cat 1 as far as the peaks. Now, what happens is, in the next few days, let's look here. It's inland, notice right here, inland. That's when it's on the Yucatan. But on the 6th, we're going from 60 knot back to 60 knot winds here, again, coming ashore, or being ashore, at 55 knots. It's starting to re-strengthen as it gets into the warm waters of the Bay of Campeche. Depending on how long it stays there, you're going to see this trend. 60 knots, you're dealing with, let's see, guys, 70 mile per hour winds under a Cat 1 with gust at 86 miles per hour. So that's what we're looking at. Now, the main thing will be which one of the models are right. If it goes with the Navy model, it's going to be not only in the Bay of Campeche, but up through the oil rigs into the Gulf. Longer time to develop. You see it's already in an increasing speed trend from 55 ashore back to 60 when it hits the water, right? Now, this is showing it coming ashore back into Mexico. But if the Navy model is right, it's going to traverse the entire Gulf from north to south, from the Bay of Campeche up to Texas. Then these numbers, and if the Navy's right, you're going to see these numbers change drastically. So far, looking at the numbers you and I have seen, we've been very correct. They're saying it was going to be a Cat 2, then a 3, then a 4, then a 5, and now, right now, we're less than 1/2 of a mile beyond a Cat 5 approaching Jamaica. Again, guys, thanks for watching. You'll get as many updates as we can get in here. It's a heads up. Be safe.